Welcome back to Public Report. I'm Cameron Johnson. We've been talking with Frank Couch and Jamie Weber, both from the Science and Management of Addictions, about alcoholism. And now we're going to move on to adolescent addiction in general, more specifically on drug abuse. Thank you again both for being here.
Yeah.
How prevalent is adolescent drug abuse today?
You know, the way that we track that, in the state of Washington, we use what's called a Healthy Youth Survey. But nationally, we use what's called Monitoring the Futures, and there's a couple other surveys that we use. And they ask questions to school-age children in grades 6 through 12. And according to the most recent, which was the 2009 Monitoring the Future survey, 47% of 12th graders have used some kind of illicit substance, and 36% of 10th graders, and 20% of 8th graders. When you get to the 6th grade, it drops off significantly, but there's still, you know, 4%, in my opinion, is a high percentage in 6th grade, and that's around where it is nationally. But then again, these surveys only really track those kids that are in school. So there's a whole demographic that we're not counting, which we call the throwaway kids, the dropout kids, the kids that are homeless, that we're not tracking. So those numbers are really not that accurate, the numbers that I just gave you, for how prevalent it is. What we do know is that there are cohorts of addiction. It goes from marijuana to meth to prescription drugs to now it's turning into heroin is a big problem now, and it comes and goes in cohorts, and you know, it's been a problem for a very long time. And because the onset of most adult addiction starts in adolescence, it's a big problem. How
do kids get access to these drugs?
You know, they from prescription meds, they get right out of medicine cabinets.
Yeah.
The dentist is fond of, you know, prescribing more than enough medications for tooth extraction. You know, they get it from various ways. Marijuana is more readily available now than ever before. And in fact, here in Seattle right now, I think going on downtown is Hemp Fest. And so it's all over our city as we speak. And so there's never been a real big problem for youth and adolescents to get drugs.
That's interesting. That's kind of a sad situation.
Yeah.
You said before that adolescents' brain development is until about age 25.
Right.
And is it significantly worse when they start in 6th grade and in high school, and that would prove to have further addictions for the rest of their lives?
Yeah.
I think a good way to think about it is the earlier you start introducing substances to the brain, the greater chance you have of having a problem down the line that's persistent and chronic, because this is a brain disease that is chronic and it's ongoing if it's not treated. So the earlier you introduce substances, you're just really ramping up the chances that you're going to have to overcome the negative things that happen to you and to your brain for a longer period of time.
And what are some of the negative effects of abusing drugs?
Yeah, well, if a 6th grader starts smoking marijuana in 6th grade and it runs in their family and all of a sudden they're dependent on it, they're not going to be performing well in school. They're not going to be playing sports, chances are. Their social circle is going to be, typically it's a drug-seeking social circle, so there's not a lot of pro-social or positive activities they're going to find themselves participating in. It's illegal, so you're going to find yourself in jail if you get caught. There's lots of different negative things that can occur, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree, and you know, I think that at some point in our history we stopped using the word gateway drug, and I think we stopped using it because you know, it insinuates that this drug leads to the next drug. But really what a gateway drug means is that if you're smoking marijuana regularly and marijuana is illegal, then you're going to be more, the possibility of you being around people that are doing other drugs and illegal activities is more likely. And so you have more access to those behaviors and to those other chemicals.
I see. And how can that be prevented? What are some of the ways?
That's a real interesting question. You know, I think that everything starts in the home. Just like the parents are the first teacher, they are the first folks in that what could be a long line of people that can provide information, structure, boundaries for young people, and really monitor you know, those behaviors and really be on top of their social circle and also help to educate them on you know, the harmful effects of drugs and alcohol.
Frank started our family program at SAMA, and that has been a really strong component of our programming, is educating and supporting the families who find themselves with a young person in their home with this problem. And there's so many science-based interventions that families can learn that can be really useful tools to help support their young person, because it can feel confusing. What do I do? What rules do I set? How do they enforce them? They're going to do it anyway. All these questions come up, and I'm really proud of the family program we have at SAMA, and a lot of parents have benefited just from those easy, like, ready-to-go off-the-shelf skills that they can learn.
And because of the stigma that centers around addiction, you know, for some youth there may be a scholarship attached to, you know, this behavior, or you know, a sports team. You know, there's some social stigma that a family might have around whether or not their youth is using or not, if they admit that their youth has a problem or not. You know, but really the primary goal should be, are we getting the help for this youth that they need? And that, you know, they have a brain disease. It's not a behavioral problem, it's a brain disease. And that they need help. And, you know, I once thought of our organization as being stigma busters. You know, we went around and we did a lot of work around educating the public on just this thing, because we think that the more armed the parents are with what the signs and symptoms look like, and the types of skills that are needed to help educate their youth, that less and less youth will be inclined to use.
What about this situation when parents aren't really involved?
That's a tragedy. That's a tragedy, and we see that time and time again. And so, you know, one thing that can be done there is where parents aren't involved, what we try to do is we try to foster what we call recovery capital, and we try to build a support around the youth. There are some modalities out there, multi-systemic therapy, that is really good at that. They bring in clergy, they bring in case managers, teachers, you know, they bring in everyone that's in the system to really get underneath this youth that's struggling. You know, and sometimes when we do that, then we also make movement with the parent that's not really involved. We never stop trying to bring that natural support, but if the natural support is not there, then we try to build around them.
Do you have support for any age, or does it have to stop when they get to a certain point?